Hello, my name is Melissa Treinkman. I'm thrilled to be here today to chat with Bronson Norris Murphy. You can read more about him in Volume 80, Issue 2 of the Vocal Point column in the Journal of Singing. So, Bronson, it's so great to see you today and get to chat with you a little bit.
Yes, thank you. It's very good to see you. I'm happy to be a part of this.
This past April, the Phantom of the Opera closed after 35 years on Broadway. Tell me what that show has meant to you and how it's felt to be a part of the Broadway cast for 9 years?
Yes. It has been the biggest gift, I will tell you. Phantom of the Opera was the first cast album I ever listened to. And they say you can manifest things in your life. I became sort of a big fan of Phantom. I dressed as the Phantom for Halloween more than once. I would sing All I Ask of You at weddings and all that kind of thing. And then when I moved to New York, I would walk by the Majestic Theater where the Phantom of the Opera had been playing for years. And I would, every time I passed it, I would, see you one day, that kind of thing. And so that one day came in March of 2014. That day came, and I got to be a part of that production and five other Andrew Lloyd Webber productions in my career so far. I'm still, even though I'm an employee, or I guess now an ex-employee, now that the show has closed, I'm as much a fan as I am a worker bee in the hive of Andrew Lloyd Webber and Phantom of the Opera.
I understand that you also have gotten to meet Andrew Lloyd Webber a few times in conjunction with Love Never Dies.
Yes. So Love Never Dies, I think I could write a book about my experience with that wonderful show. After I joined Phantom in 2014, in 2016 or maybe early 17, they announced a US production, the first US production of Love Never Dies. And I just started sending, my agent and the people that I knew were involved. I just started sending emails like, how can I be seen for this? Please let me be seen for this. I had just started, or I was 2 years deep into Phantom, and I was just having the best time. And part of me was like, no, don't leave your wonderful job that you wanted for so long to go do this. But then I thought, I'm still in the family of Phantom. I'm still working for Andrew. So yeah, let me audition for this. And through a series of auditions here in New York, I was cast as the Phantom alternate and in the ensemble. So I would do 6 shows a week in the ensemble, and then twice a week I would play the Phantom. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I could not believe that I had been chosen to do that, because again, I'm like the biggest fan of Andrew and the Phantom world. So my first time meeting Andrew was in our technical rehearsals for Love Never Dies. And unfortunately, the guy that they had hired to play the Phantom was feeling ill, or he wasn't able to perform. And we were days from opening. We had previewed in one city, and then we were in our final tech process, and we were about to open. So it was a big opening night. And he wasn't feeling well. And so I had to take his place for those tech rehearsals that Andrew was at. And this was a huge national tour. There were hundreds of important people there. I didn't know that Andrew was there. And so just minutes before a full company meeting, she brings me into a space where there is Andrew Lloyd Webber. And I think my soul left my body. I started, I was trying to play it very cool, but I also knew that I had a big job to do because now I'm playing the Phantom. We're about to open. And now this hero of mine is in front of me watching me sing and act and portray this character that he has made iconic all over the world. And, he said to me something, he said, I know you're the guy for the job. And that's all I needed to hear. I was already having to step up into a role that, I wasn't completely prepared for because I was still learning my ensemble track. But, I took his faith in me as confidence in myself. And obviously the team that surrounds him had faith in me.
I mean, from that story, it appears that you do very well under pressure.
The first thing that came to my mind was popcorn isn't delicious until you put it under pressure. But yeah, I think you're right. I think I don't know if thrive is the right word, but I do like having a little bit of, pressure on me to really step up and help out, a full company of artists that have gathered to do something. So yeah, the pressure was daunting, but sort of welcome. I never shied from it.
Is there
Mm.
something that you do or that you can recommend to others for dealing with that pre-performance energy or what we might call performance anxiety?
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful question. And I wish there was a magic answer to that. I'd probably be a bazillionaire if I could sell that, whatever that is. There's a difference between practice, rehearsal, and performance. And doing the practice before you get to rehearsal so that you can be ready for the performance is key. And I think going back to your vocal technique and your breath work, having done the practice where you can mess up and nobody is there to sort of judge you. And I think the most times that I feel nervous in my life, I haven't done the work myself. I haven't done the practice. I'm more nervous when I know that I haven't done the work that I should have. And so you learn that lesson, you feel that lesson once or twice, and then you're like, I don't enjoy that feeling. So I'm going to do the work, you know. And then if the pressure comes from outside sources, you have to remember that you're enough. You've been chosen or asked or expected to do the thing that they could have asked hundreds of other people to do. And so just step up to the plate and try to knock it out of the park.
So, for our viewers and readers who might not know, can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a swing on Broadway or having to learn multiple tracks?
Yes, of course. I find it very, very fun. I'm just as happy in a swing position where I get to do, in Phantom, I covered 10 different roles. And so, on a Monday night, they might call and say, hey, we need you as this guy. And then on Tuesday, it might be something else, or maybe the same. And then, Wednesday, you're playing Raoul, or, whatever it is. So I like that. It's not for everybody. And casting directors know that. It takes a special sort of, and I say special meaning a unique, but it takes a unique individual who can compartmentalize enough and have the skills necessary to play, number one, to play 10 different roles, but number two, to keep them organized and fresh enough to go on. So at Phantom over 9 years, covering 10 roles, there were roles that I probably did only 3 or 4 times in 9 years. So there's gaps between them. I had to, again, do the practice, do the rehearsal, keep it fresh enough for myself. And I learned from one of my fellow swings at Phantom, and it kind of trivializes it a bit, but it's true. At Phantom, whether I performed or not, I was paid because I was paid for what I know, not always for what I did. I still have to know 10 shows every time I walk in the building. So it's a lot of note taking, like I said, organization, reviewing on your own. I get a call at 3 o'clock. Hey, you're going to be on for the auctioneer. Well, at 3:30, I'm practicing the auctioneer monologue. I'm going through his track every day, every day. And the only time I don't do that is when I'm in the same role for like a week at a time. And I can just rely on the repetition of the performance and rehearsals to get me through. But otherwise, the amount of hours I've spent in this very apartment rehearsing Phantom of the Opera with nobody here is staggering.
What's your warm-up routine on the day of performance? Do you have any rituals or certain things that you have to do?
I don't have any rituals or things that I have to do in order to perform because sometimes the day gets away from you. And I think, there are things I would love to be able to do every single day and I know make me a better, healthier performer. But at the same time, I'm also aware that if I don't do them, I can rely on my technique and make it through. So there's nothing ritualistic, but I do like to at least every day have some sort of cardio to get my body, lubricated and get my blood flowing, get my heart rate up. And then especially if I'm responsible for a big sing I will definitely do a vocalese, a warm up that my coach and I put together for me. And that will change depending on what kind of role, I'm doing. I had a wonderful coach and she told me, I always had this notion that if I didn't sing a high C warming up, I wouldn't have it when I got on stage. And she said, that's a normal thought to have, but do you think ballet dancers slam into a split and then run on stage and just have it there? And I was like, no, they stretch slowly and they work into it. And she's like, that's what you have to do too. So she helped me sort of refocus what I have to do before a performance in order to achieve what I want to achieve.
So it sounds like you still work with coaches and teachers, and can you talk a little bit about that? And is that typical among your Broadway cohort, or do you think that that's, unique?
I I don't think it's unique. I think it's necessary, especially when I get a new role. I'll take it to my voice teacher from grad school or one of my professional coaches and work through it with somebody else that isn't necessarily involved in the production, because the folks involved in the production are going to want it one way 8 times a week, and the people who are working with me outside the production are going to want it the safest, healthiest, most sort of easy way 8 times a week. And then I can marry the two in the rehearsal room. So yeah, I don't think it's unique for Broadway folks to use coaches and teachers, because just like any sport, we have to keep things in line. We have to keep our technique top notch. We have to make sure everything is healthy. But there again, I think a lot of people have very natural abilities and don't have to think about that as much, the training part.
That kind of makes me think of your voice. When I've listened to you sing, it's just such a gorgeous, beautiful instrument, just sheer beauty. Do you think that's just innate, or do you think that that was cultivated?
Oh, I think I was born with a gift for music, and I think a lot of really gifted people have cultivated it for me.
What would you want to tell aspiring singers studying this craft, hoping to someday be you?
Every opportunity I had to learn something from someone who was either in the business or peripherally in the business, I took. The most important thing is that kindness is key. And I see a lot of gifted young artists who don't know that yet. People want to work with those people exactly once. Oh, you had a great audition, you've got a stellar high note, you've got a great big belt, great, come work with me once. And then I find out that you're unkind and that you're terrible to work with and that, you're always late, whatever it is. That was the one experience. And I haven't done everything right, but I've made a career working with the same people over and over and over. And I think it's because I tried to marry the gifts I was given, marry the technique that I acquired, and marry kindness with that, because I think that's how we should all want to live. And that's certainly who I want to work with. And now I'm in a position where I'm hiring actors. I'm, an associate artistic director at a theater. So I look for that, and I sit in audition rooms and I see how you treat the pianist, and I see how you look at me because I'm behind the table and you think I have the job to give, but you don't know that my best friend is the one who let you in the room, and she's already texted me that you're creating a mess in the hall. So it's all those kinds of things that if I could just blanket statement to every young artist, it's just like, check your egos at the door and lead with kindness, because that will get you farther than, your best high note on any day.
That's very helpful, and I hope that a lot of young singers follow that advice.
Yeah, and the thing is, it is difficult when you're faced with challenges to remember to lead with kindness. But if you make it daily practice in your real life, and I'm separating performing life from real life here, if you start your day being kind, by the time you get to work, it's already in you. You know what I mean? If we can just shape ourselves to treat each other kindly from the moment we wake up, then we don't have to put anything on when we go to work. I think that's missing a lot in our industry and the world as a whole too.
How have you handled disappointment in your career? I'm sure there's been some cases where you haven't gotten a role that you really wanted. What advice do you have for that situation?
I'm blessed with a personality that can let go of things fairly easily. I know that's a challenge for a lot of people, but what's meant for you will come, and what's not will not, and you'll be grateful for it. One of my favorite quotes is, be thankful for the things you don't have that you didn't want. So let go, let God, just move on. If you do 150 auditions in a year and you get one job, you're lucky. You know what I mean? It's astounding the amount of work that even your highest profile people that you read about in the trades, how many auditions they didn't book to get the one role that you know them for, right? And so it's just a part of the industry. It's just the day-to-day reality, and you just have to do your best work in the audition room, walk out, and let everything else happen, because you have zero control over it. I teach this in my audition technique classes. It's like 99% of what you have to offer in booking a job is your own preparation. Everything else is up to a committee of people that you can't control. You can't control their perception of how beautiful you are, how long your hair is that day, their perception of whether you're tall enough, whether, you have no control. So just let it go and do your work, which is preparation for the audition or the performance or whatever it is.
Great advice. Did you ever consider another career besides being a musician, being a singer?
I was so inspired by the teachers that I had growing up that I wanted to be them. I wanted to sort of do what they do and instill a love for music and choral music and music theater in young folks. And so my undergraduate degree is in music education. And then I needed a master's degree to start my certification. And so I chose to go to NYU. They had a master's in music, but I could choose vocal performance or education. And so I chose vocal performance because it sounded more fun than continuing the education route at that time. So my plan was to maybe be a high school choir director. And then when I moved to New York, right, the semester before I graduated, I had my first audition for the national tour of Cats, and kind of went on a whim, but definitely hoped I got it, because how much fun would that be? And then did get it. And then that just started a career path that didn't allow me to be a full-time high school teacher, but I've kept teaching, as I just mentioned, along with my performance there.
A lot of people think, oh, once I land my first national tour or I land a role on Broadway, then it's just going to be continuous work forever, right? And it's
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the reality of that?
Yeah, the reality of that is it's not right. It's not true. Because even your first national tour, even your first Broadway show, you have contracts, and those contracts end. And if you aren't lucky to be re-signed, then that's over right away. 6, 9 months, 12 months max. If you're not re-signed, that experience is over. And that experience is the result of one set of auditions you did. So even while you're living the high life in your big Broadway show, even when you're on the road doing these big shows that are traveling the world, you better still be sending in audition tapes. You better still be talking to casting directors, because that, take it from somebody who just ended a 35-year run. The show lasted for 35 years. Nobody ever thought it would close. It's just like everything ends. And you must have opportunities sort of at least at your doorstep. Whether or not you have yourself booked for the next year, doesn't matter. But where are the opportunities? So you never, at least I've never felt like, I've reached the pinnacle, I can relax. It's just not true, because you always know that closing date is coming, and then you're back to square one. Like, yeah, you have a nice new credit on your resume. That doesn't really matter when you go into the next audition. It might get you the next audition, but it's not going to get you the next job, for sure.
Well, at USC, we have this initiative called the multi-hyphenate artist. You wear many different hats. I've also heard it called the portfolio career. Do you think that's important for young singers to understand that reality?
Oh, yes. I mean, absolutely. I often hear, if you have any other passions, follow them. And I agree with that, except if you take that to mean, oh, don't be silly and follow singing. If you want to be, if you want to be an engineer on automobiles, do that. Yes, but do that while you're singing. Do that in your downtime. Do that. Follow your passions and do the things that you're passionate about. At the same time, yes, be multi-hyphenate. Absolutely. If you're an artist and you want to be a teacher and a director and a dancer and a visual art, do it all. Make your own life pleasing and happy for you. Why would we not? Why would we restrict ourselves to the things that we think we're supposed to do, or that other people have told us to do? Like, branch out, absolutely. Grasp at more things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like create your own path. Your career doesn't have to look exactly like someone else's. Like, this is what a Broadway career should look like, and if
Right.
it deviates, right?
You could interview 150 Broadway people right now, and no two paths will look alike. Somebody will have gotten a Broadway show out of their senior year showcase in college. 10 of them will have never gone to college. Dozens of them won't have had their first Broadway show until they were 50 or older. No two paths will ever look alike, and no path was easy. no path, well, I shouldn't say no path was easy, but no path was sort of handed to anyone. Like they had to do the work to get to the thing that they've achieved. And then hopefully they also know that that achievement will one day have a lovely bow on it and will go on a shelf. And what's next? What what do I look forward to? That's a big question.
Well, thank you again, Bronson, and I'll look forward to continuing to watch your career and hopefully get to meet you in person at some point.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.